Is Kate on the line? Yeah, there you are, Kate. Hi.
Yes, I'm here. Hello, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm going to share my screen. I'm sorry not to be with you. Thank you for inviting me, and it's lovely to see everybody in Zoom, if not in person, perhaps next time. Poverty is one of the strongest determinants of health. We have a very broad and deep literature on how poverty affects the body. Poverty shapes all of the social determinants of health. So poverty determines whether you have access to food, education, work, water. It affects your social and community life. It affects people's individual family life. It affects our genes, everything. And the literature on this, the research on this is so strong, so deep, and so wide. Poverty also shapes the social foundations of the safe and just space for humanity. So whatever model of well-being we're looking at, poverty is right there at the heart of it, undermining what we know is needed for health. Now, poverty has direct effects on the body as well as indirect effects through our access to health, food, water, income, education, etc. It directly affects our physiology. Everything from the expression of our genes through to our immune systems and our neurobiology. And chronic stress is the mechanism linking poverty to all of its adverse health effects. And so our understanding of the biology of of chronic stress has given us an understanding of how poverty affects the body. So as well as our epidemiology giving us an understanding of the patterns of who is affected by poverty and how health is affected by poverty, we do understand the mechanisms. We're very clear on that. Poverty is a chronic stressor, and chronic stress, it's almost like aging too rapidly. I want to make 3 points with the time I've got. And the first is that poverty doesn't really have a threshold. If we're thinking about deprivation and what we mean by poverty, absolute and relative poverty matter. And there isn't a simple threshold where we can see these starting to affect health. Health has a social gradient. Here are life expectancy data by deprivation for England. And although life expectancy is shortest among the most deprived part of the population, it's not just that they have lower life expectancy and everybody else is fine, it's a gradient. And so even if you are in the top 80% of the population by deprivation, your life expectancy is a little bit shorter than if you're in the top 90%. So in a sense, thinking about poverty without thinking about inequality and without thinking about the whole gradient is misleading. We need to level up that social gradient in health for everybody. Yes, the impact is greatest at the bottom. Poverty matters, but we need to level up for everybody and tackle health inequalities as a whole. Jeff talked about the different measures of poverty, relative versus absolute. And of course, what relative poverty means in different places is very different in terms of material circumstances. If you are poor in India, your material circumstances are very different compared to if you're poor in, for example, the Scandinavian countries. But people's experiences of poverty are the same in those places. Their articulation of their lived experience is the same. The shame they feel, the lack of respect, the concerns, the worries, the chronic stress that they have is the same. So poverty matters throughout the world. Poverty matters for all of humanity, and relative poverty measures in relation to health show us that that is true. If you are relatively poor, your health is affected. Sabina, just at the end of her talk, was touching on issues of race, gender, and I just want to make the point that all of the measures of deprivation, inequality that we might be concerned about, including poverty, they intersect. There are entrenched and intersecting inequalities between income and wealth and power.
Sorry, Kathy, you have only 1 minute more.
Thank you. That intersect with demographic inequalities. You're more likely to be poor if you're younger, you're more likely to be poor if you're a woman, you're more likely to be poor if you're a member of ethnic minority, you're more likely to be poor in some places than others, you're more likely to be poor if you belong to a group that is discriminated against within society. And so when we think about tackling poverty, when we think about leveling up those health inequalities, we have to think about all of those intersecting poverties, all of those intersecting inequalities. We have to ask ourselves, who is poor and why? And just as a segue to the next session, which is going to be on the psychosocial consequences of poverty, chronic stress, distress is linked to physical health. At every step up a scale of chronic stress, we see an increase in death rates. From being not stressed to a little bit stressed, from being quite a lot stressed to being very, very stressed. So chronic stress, mental experience of stress is linked to physical health as well. I'll stop there. Thank you very much.